What if you could redesign the hardest parts of your business to actually energize you? Not to just tolerate them, not to just grind through them, but to genuinely feel alive whilst you're doing them. You see, most people with ADHD type brains think that that's impossible. They think that success requires you to consistently do things that you hate, that you just have to push through no matter what. You know, suck it up, do the work, because successful people do hard things. Which, don't get me wrong, is true, but here's what I've actually learned. There's a massive difference between doing hard things and doing soul-draining things. Hard things can energize you, whereas I find that soul-draining things, they kill your momentum. And most business advice that you likely see doesn't make that distinction. It just tells you what you should be doing without asking whether it actually works with your brain. So let me tell you a story that changed how I think about this entirely. I just stepped off stage and somebody grabbed my arm, and then another. And within a couple of minutes, 3 more people surrounded me, asking questions, wanting to connect, pulling out their phones to book calls. You see, I just spent the past 6 hours teaching at a mastermind. 6 hours straight of articulating my ideas, riffing on my frameworks, answering questions, and fully living in my hunter brain. And I felt fucking alive. For once, I wasn't drained. I wasn't depleted. I wasn't counting down the minutes until I could escape. And what's interesting is that 2 people from within that room became clients just a month later. Not because I'd perfected a sales script or I'd peppered them with cold outreach, but because they got to experience how my mind actually works. They'd seen me in my element. Now let's contrast that with my previous 3 years of business. Every morning I'd sit down to do my daily 100. I'd send out 100 messages, whether that be cold or warm. Ultimately, I was doing whatever version of grinding the guru of the month was telling me to do. And the thing here, right, is that I could do it, and I did do it. I saw some results here and there, but the trade-off was brutal. I'd finish every block feeling hollowed out, resenting my business, and ultimately dreading tomorrow. And like I said, I was signing people up, sure, but I was also building an immense amount of resentment towards my business. And here's what I had to learn about resentment. For a hunter brain, resentment towards your business kills momentum quicker than anything else. You can white knuckle your way through tasks that you hate for a while, but eventually that resentment is gonna start to compound. It bleeds into everything. Your energy drops, your creativity dies, you start avoiding the very activities that your business needs you to focus on to survive. And ultimately, here's the trap that I fell into. The daily 100 was working. So I convinced myself that I couldn't stop. And you'll know this, if you've got an ADHD type brain, you are like a dog with a bone. When you are on, you are truly fucking on. So I told myself, this is just what I have to do in order to build a business. But here's what nobody tells you about doing things that drain you over a long period of time. It ultimately doesn't matter if it's working, if it's killing you in the process, because you can't sustain something that makes you feel miserable. Not for the long term at least, and definitely not without burning out. And I very quickly began to realize that this wasn't just about outreach. This is about any task in your business that is fundamentally critical, but drains the shit out of you. Maybe for you it's content creation, maybe it's sales calls, maybe it's some form of operations or admin work. It might even be how you deliver your service to your clients. The specifics around the task doesn't really matter. What matters is the pattern. There's something that your business fundamentally needs, and you're doing it because you feel like you should, but it's slowly killing you from the inside out. So after spending a longer period of time in that space than I'd like to admit, I eventually started asking myself a different question. What am I actually trying to achieve here? Not how am I supposed to do it, not what did Alex Hormozy tell me that I should be doing. What is the actual outcome that I'm trying to create? For me, with the daily 100, the answer was pretty simple. I was trying to get into more conversations with potential clients. That was the outcome of that task. The daily 100 was just a vehicle to try and get that outcome. And that's when it hit me. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's no master rule that says client attraction has to be done through outreach. That is just one single path to a destination. So then I proceeded to ask myself a second question. What if I could redesign this entire process to work with my brain rather than me having to fight against it daily? What if I could get the same outcome just in a way that energized me much more? So off the back of this, I started to test a different approach. I looked at where I actually felt alive in my business, where I was in what I call my zone of genius. And for me, at that point in time, the answer was clear. It was being on stages. It was teaching. It was riffing on ideas in real time without having to have a script or anything like that. Having fluid conversations with people where I could think out loud, take on what their problems were, and try and provide them with a unique and creative way to solve that problem. I recognized that that's when I lost track of time. That is when I feel most like myself. So I started to test whether I could build my client acquisition and client attraction around this. So I doubled down on my own podcast. I started getting onto other people's podcasts as a guest. And I looked for opportunities to speak at masterminds and events. And that keynote that I mentioned that I attended at the start of the year, that was the proof point for me. I'd spent 6 hours on that stage, a block in the morning and a block in the afternoon. And one of my clients was already in that room. I gained another 2 within just a month after that talk. And the key here is that I came away from that feeling energized, not depleted. And the outcome was the same. I got more clients, had more conversations, and I got a trip to Edinburgh. But the path was completely different. And that made all of the difference. Because here's what became apparent very quickly. People don't hire you because they read your perfectly crafted cold message. They hire you because they trust you. And trust builds faster when they get to experience how you think. And for me, that's through speaking, teaching, etc. But for you, that might be completely different. Maybe it's through writing. Maybe it's through creating visual content. Maybe it's hosting intimate dinners with your prospects where you solve problems over wine. That definitely sounds like something I should do. Now, the point here isn't to copy my strategy or anything like that. Because as I've said before, I think that causes the majority of the problems that we experience. Is that somebody gives off their strategy and their tactics as gospel, and we try them, not taking into account what actually works for me. So the point isn't to copy my strategy. The point is for you to stop building your business around a strategy that some guru has told you that you should be doing. So let me give you the framework that I went through myself to redesign these elements of my business so you can do the same too. Because this certainly doesn't just apply to client attraction. This applies to any critical task within your business that is currently draining you. Step 1, identify your critical but painful tasks. Look at your business right now. What are the tasks that are essential to your business but are ultimately draining the shit out of you? For me, like I said, that was daily outreach. But whatever they are for you, write them down. You need to be honest with yourself here. Don't focus on what should be easy or you feel like you should be doing. Focus on reality. What actually drains you? How you feel shortly after you finish a task is going to be a huge signal to you as to how your brain deals and engages with that task. Step 2, extract the real outcome. Now, I want you to take each task that you've written down and I want you to strip away the method. So don't focus on how you're currently doing the thing. Focus on what it's actually achieving for you and your business. What's the real outcome and purpose of you completing that task on a daily or weekly basis? So for my daily outreach example, the true outcome of me completing that task is so I can get into more conversations with potential customers. Let's say, for example, you were currently writing a daily LinkedIn post, and that was the critical but painful task that was on your plate. Now, the real outcome of that might be to demonstrate expertise and stay top of mind. If it's sales calls, the actual outcome you're trying to achieve might be to help prospects to see if this is the right fit for them or not. Like I said, strip away the tactic and vehicle that you're using to try and drive the result at the moment. Just isolate and focus on the actual result itself, which is crucial because most of us confuse the method with the outcome. We think in terms of, I need to do daily outreach, when actually what we need is to get into more conversations with potential customers. Those are not the same thing. Step 3, audit your zone of genius. Now, I want you to ask yourself these following questions. Where do you feel alive in your business? Where do you lose track of time? What gets you into flow state? What do people naturally compliment you on? What do you do that feels effortless, but to others, it seems impressive? Again, strip away all the shoulds and whatnot. Focus on what actually energizes you as an individual. Maybe you love writing and getting into the flow of creating long-form content. Maybe you love one-on-one deep conversations with people. Maybe you love systems thinking and you love creating systems and processes inside of your business. Whatever it is, write it down. This is likely going to be your competitive advantage. This is what you're going to design around. Step 4, redesign for brain alignment. Now, here's where things start to get a bit interesting. Take the outcome from step 2 and your zone of genius from step 3 and ask, how can I achieve this outcome through my zone of genius instead? Let me give you some examples to make this easier. Like me, if your critical task was client attraction through outreach, but your zone of genius is riffing on ideas and teaching, you might redesign this as prioritizing, getting on stages, creating workshops, and being a guest on podcasts. If your critical task is writing those blog posts every week so that you can showcase your expertise and stay top of mind, but your zone of genius you find is actually speaking, then you might redesign it as creating weekly video content. Or you keep the blog post and you just redesign the process so that you can voice note transcribe the process of writing the blog post, therefore being built around speaking. So what I want to highlight to you is that the path here looks different, but the destination is ultimately the same. You're still achieving the critical outcome that your business needs to move forward. You're just now doing it in a way that works with your brain rather than against it. And then we have step 5, which is usually overlooked, and that is test and double down. So don't do what I did and blow up your business overnight. Start small. Start testing your hypothesis. For me, that meant saying yes to one podcast and one speaking gig, rather than booking up my calendar for 6 months in advance, because I wanted to see if it works. I wanted to see if my hypothesis was correct. And I tracked 2 things, my energy and my results. If it energizes you and you get results, then double the fuck down. Do more of it. Ignore what you think it should look like. Ignore what's working for other people around you. If it works for your brain and it gets the results that your business needs, then you're onto a winner. And if it doesn't work, just try a different redesign and keep testing until you find a version that lights you up. So here's what I want you to understand. Every critical task within your business can be redesigned. There is no one right way to do business. There are thousands of ways to attract clients. There are thousands of ways to create content. Just like there are plenty of ways to close deals, sign up clients, and deliver your service. Your job is not to find the best way. Your job is to find your way. The way that's going to make you feel the same way that I felt as I stepped off that stage. Exhilarated, energized, alive. Because your brain wiring is your competitive advantage if you design around it. You're not cheating by doing things differently. You are being highly strategic. You're playing to your strengths instead of trying to constantly fix your so-called weaknesses. And that is how you're going to build something that is sustainable and highly impactful. Something that you want to be inside of every day. And the outreach story that I shared is just one of many examples. But this framework applies to everything, and I've used it plenty of times inside of my business. But there's still something important that you need to be aware of. Even if you redesign your entire business, you are still liable to the invisible weight that is crushing ADHD type entrepreneurs. And I talk you through exactly how you can overcome that in this video here. So make sure you give it a watch and I'll catch you over there.